1988 was the year that Destro decided he's done. The Iron Grenadiers are an army supplied by Mars Industries, and that means they're going to have some weird shit. And this is where we get the weird shit of 1988. We're going to talk about every vehicle in 1988 and rank them from the worst to the best.
Yo, Joe!
Okay, so you may have seen I recently ranked every figure from 1988, the Iron Grenadier year. Here we're ranking the videos. Anytime I'm doing one of these rankings, I've ranked a bunch of things in G.I. Joe. The idea is to give you like a little non-linear tour of everything that happened in the year, remind you of that, and go from the worst to the best. There's a lot of great here. This is an awesome year for vehicles. There's some of the best things they've ever done. There's also some of the stupidest shit you've ever seen in a toy line. So it is one of the weirdest mixed bags of awesomeness and crap that I think in G.I. Joe history. This is G.I. Joe at its like the downfall from its peak, but still kind of riding that like top. I feel like hits its peak in like 84, levels out to 87, starts to dip a little bit here, but is still awesome. I was still fully invested. I was getting anything and everything that I could. I was too old to be buying toys, as I still am too old to be buying toys by other people's standards. I don't listen to other people's standards. I don't give a fuck about other people's standards. I was doing that. Maybe you were too. I'm gonna get the message that there's a lot more of us than I thought there was. At the time, I didn't give a shit. I was buying, loved this year, and this sort of, I think after this year, 1988, 89, still pretty good, and then it starts to dip, highly dip in quality. I feel like this might be the last great year. Now let's get into the vehicles. Okay, the very bottom of this list, we got to put this thing, the Cobra Battle Barge. This thing sucks. First of all, you are on the battle barge, you're dying. It doesn't move, so you're a stationary target in the water. You've got machine guns on the side, okay, and a radar dish, what okay. But if it moves, it's like being on a flotation device in the middle of a firefight. You are dead. Like, this is like, you are envious of a guy in a trouble bubble if you are in the battle barge. This is a death trap. That thing was terrible. It's not fun. Not fun at all. At the very bottom of the list, we have what I consider one of the worst vehicles in G.I. Joe history. And that is called the tank car, okay? And there's two things just like this. We're going to put them at worst and second worst. The tank car and the ATV. Now what these are, these were motorized little packs. They were kind of fun. You could go get, for a couple bucks, few bucks, you could get a little motorized wind-up toy for your G.I. Joes. And some of these are kind of awesome. They were nice little purchases. They were kind of fun. Although most of them have this horrible effect of just being this monstrous backpack that just is too big for anybody to carry and doesn't work. But what the bottom, one of these things that really does suck is the ATV and the tank car, because they really, what they really look like is that G.I. Joe is riding Power Wheels into battle. Okay, this looks absolutely ridiculous. He's riding a child's toy into battle. Spearhead is riding a child's toy. This looks absolutely stupid, and I don't know what they were thinking. Now, I talked about this in my worst vehicles of G.I. Joe video. You can check that out here. But totally ridiculous. You imagine you're riding a battle and you're just like, wee, I'm on a child's toy. You're shooting. You just like the Cobra would like is the strategy that Cobra laughs that they can't concentrate and they can't shoot anymore because they're laughing so hard at the sight of a grown man riding a child's toy in a battle. It's horrible. Okay, now it's keeping at the bottom of the list. We're gonna go with these. Let's go through these motorized packs as we're gonna include them as they're not vehicles, but I want vehicles, accessories. We'll talk about it all. Just kind of remind you of everything that came out. Minesweeper. It's never fun. I think I've spoken about this many times. That like Never been a Tripwire fan until Classified made him, because I don't think about military coolness when I think about a Minesweeper. I think about like an old man who's got his butt crack showing on the beach. You go to the beach and there's like a weird old dude and he's just like looking for loose change that's what I think about when I think about Minesweeper. It's not fun. Next in line, the twin missile radar. And again, like, radar is just not fun. It's just not that exciting. Next we have the machine gun nest, then the double machine gun. Okay, having a little extra firepower is always good, but just there's nothing like really stand out about these things. I remember I had all of them, but I don't remember really being invested in using them ever. Next we have the rocket sled. Now this one almost works for me. It's kind of a cool little, quick little jetpack that rockets you through the water, but it's not very memorable. Similar to that is the G.I. Joe's version, the scuba pack, which is a little bit of an extension of what wetsuit would normally be using. You could propel them through the water. Next we have the gyrocopter, creating a part in a long history of what I would call the headless brigade. I just don't think a jetpack with a helicopter above that is powerful enough to rise you into the air is safe for anybody. I think you're losing your head. And that's probably what I would do most of the time. You just shoot the seatbelt off and then chop the guy's head off. And it's okay. Lastly, we have the mortar launcher. Now this one kind of worked for me. It had a little a rope attached to it. I have no idea why, because you would not want a rope attached. You would not want a rope attached to a mortar. It's a bad idea. So I don't know why, but the action of that made it just a little more exciting. And the number one of these battle packs has to be the battle axe. It makes zero sense. It is a really stupid toy, but it's also a battle axe that jumps up and down when you wind it up. It's so dumb and so awesome. I don't know why anybody would use that in a battle, but I gotta say, as a dumb kid, I was all about it. That was the one I got the most use out of. Now that we've gotten out of the way the really ridiculous little wind-up toys that G.I. Joe was making, let's get into the vehicles officially. Anti-gravity pod. And this is just a strange looking vehicle that it just does not work for me at all. G.I. Joe, you think Destro, you're going to save your best shit for yourself. You're not going to be like, giving Cobra the Mamba and then you got the stupid anti-gravity pod. I don't think that's a good plan. This thing, it just looks weird and too sci-fi and it doesn't fit. It does not work. Never been a fan. It's kind of a junky toy. Next we have the remote piloted vehicle, the RPV. This is a little tiny vehicle that launches a missile. It also has like a weird little robot that goes along the side of it that's supposed to do something. I don't know what. It's just one of those. G.I. Joe would put out a lot of these little world building pieces that you could use in a diorama of the background, but you're just not going to be very memorable as a toy. And to me, this is the exact example of that thing. Next, we have the Cobra Adder. And this is a tiny little vehicle, sleek little vehicle that has two massive missiles on it. It's okay. Okay, next we have the Swamp Masher. Now this thing's pretty weird, I gotta admit. This thing's pretty weird. It's got like first of all, it's got a green-purple aesthetic to it. A Gatling gun. But then it has these like wheel clusters with like rotating 3 wheels. And it just looks like it's a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles vehicle. I don't know what this is going on. Why is this G.I. Joe? What's happening here? All the images we are getting from 3djoes.com, so thanks to 3djoes.com for allowing us to use their images and for helping the G.I. Joe community. Check out their website. Thank you to Carson and 3D Joes. Next, we have the Skystorm. And the Skystorm might be the worst G.I. Joe aircraft. I don't get it. This is, again, I don't mean to be complaining a lot. Like I said, it's the first half I'm going to bitch. The second half is going to be a love letter. So, but This thing does not work at all for me. Now, one thing that makes you appreciate it just slightly more is if you listen to Guy Cassidy, and like I said, I know I'm like making fun of some of the stuff that he's done here, but I'm also gonna like be like worshiping him later. So whatever. I'm sorry, I'm not everything is fucking roses all the time kind of guy. He does talk about how he saw the inspiration for this vehicle in some sort of magazine, and so there's something like it. And the idea is that the helicopter allows for VTOL, like vertical takeoff and landing, and then once you're like hovering in the air, retracts, jet kicks in, and you fly. So it's like a different kind of VTOL. So that's kind of interesting and maybe expands my appreciation of it, maybe putting it a little higher on the list. But I just don't think it's a great inspired design, which some of the stuff he's done here is absolutely inspired. Okay, next in line, you may be surprised. I'm going to put the despoiler on here. The despoiler, I don't love the despoiler despite being my boy's, vehicle here. I just feel like you would fly under a bridge and just rip yourself in half. I feel like it just needs more protection. It doesn't, you feels you're just too exposed in this thing, which I know is a general problem with G.I. Joe vehicles, that the driver is exposed, the driver is basically going always at risk of dying. But this is one of those cases where I think it goes beyond, even the normal bad protection. So I don't love it. The one thing I do think is kind of cool is that it perches on top of the Demon. That's all right. Okay, next in line, we are going to get into the repaints. Let's go through them real quickly, okay? Really fast, speed through this shit. And when I talked about the figures, you're going to say, I was like, I love the aesthetic of Night Force for figures because it makes more sense. Everything looks cool in black. Didn't love the aesthetic of Tiger Force as much, with the exception of a few figures. I'm going to flip that here because I think there's a blandness to the Night Force vehicles that makes them not as cool as their originals. Whereas the Tiger Force now looks really cool. They look really weird. It almost felt like this is like their jungle invasion force. So you take it, and this also, what I think really works is when Cobra vehicles are taken. So it's like the G.I. Joe steal some Cobra vehicles to repaint them, repurpose them. That's when it really stands out as working for me. So we're going to go backwards. So at the very bottom of here, I'm going to give you the Night Raider because the Triple T tank makes no sense and it is way too exposed. You're going to die if you're in that thing. Secondly, we'll go with the Night Storm, which is, the Pulverizer, which is an okay vehicle. Then the Night Blaster. Then the Night Shade. It's a shark, which is awesome. So even if it's just a black repaint of a shark, it's still a shark. It's still awesome. And a Night Striker. Okay, now I kind of want that. Like having a black killer whale, that is badass, gotta admit. Now we're in Tiger Force land. And these kind of all rule, honestly. These are all rule. I'm going to go Tiger Cat as the bottom of the list. Tiger Paw. Then Tiger Shark, Tiger Fly, and then the Tiger Rat, which is a badass Rattler. Just looks incredible. These really work. This is, as much as I know it's a cash grab that pisses me off, and I'm anti-repaint in general, every once in a while I can appreciate the repaint, and this really worked. The Tiger Force vehicles are all winners. Okay, next in line we have the Cobra Imp. This is a weird fat little vehicle that shoots. It's got a cool, burgundy colored little tank that has cool little missiles that what they do is they're supposed to shoot off and they explode and then they drop down mines, right? So you would have they'd scatter mines all over the field. So that's kind of the purpose of this tank. Once it does that, does it go home? I feel like it doesn't have much purpose after that. It's not like one of the greatest vehicles they ever came out with. But aesthetically, I dug it. What's crazy is that it just comes with 24 landmines. So once you use it, you just landmines spread out everywhere. It's kind of a cool concept. And I appreciate that. The Desert Fox is next. This is an awesome vehicle despite coming with a vehicle driver that is named after shitting your pants. This guy is this vehicle though is awesome. One, we get a gunner station that actually has armor for a change, right? It actually has armor plating, so they're somewhat protected as he's firing at people with this gun. Next in line, we have the Mean Dog, and this is when this year officially gets awesome. This thing is awesome. I love this thing. First of all, it has this, modular system, so it's basically 3 vehicles in one. It's a freestanding cannon. It also, the front, wheels rip out from the front, and then it has a kind of like battering ram looking edge to it that I think was always fun to make smash through targets. And then the back tank has, rows of missile launchers. So it was one of those fun things that had like several vehicles in one. It also was a pretty decent troop carrier in the initial phase, the front. You could pry that thing open and you could put a few different figures in and look pretty sufficiently armored. This is another one of those where G.I. Joe's actually armored for a change. Almost everybody in the Mean Dog is kind of protected.
Okay, next we have the Cobra Stiletto, and this is Cobra's answer to the Defiant. Unfortunately for Cobra, going against the Defiant with this little thing isn't really gonna work out, but I will say on its own the Stiletto is an absolutely beautiful toy. It's a really well designed, really interesting looking vehicle. Maybe it fits a little bit more with Star Wars than it does G.I. Joe. It just feels a bit sci-fi. Love the design here. The back part folds out so you can sort of place it on the ground so it can point upwards and then launch it to the air, and it's got satellite destroying missiles and lasers, and it's just a great looking vehicle.
Okay, next we have the Phantom X-19 Stealth Fighter, and I think this is a great addition to the Air Force of G.I. Joe. It's a stealth fighter, something that can match up to a Night Raven and its stealth abilities. It's also armed to the teeth, laser guns that pop out from the wings, little rocket drones with little gliders on them. And and I love the rider, Ghost Rider. So this is a late era vehicle that's a sleeper. It's a really good toy. It's really beautiful too. It's a really nice design. I love this thing. Okay, now we're down to our last few here. The Demon. This thing is so good. I love this thing. It's weird looking, yeah. But this is Destro's, primary weapon, right? This is the tanks of the Iron Grenadiers. One, just a very weird looking vehicle, but heavily armored. This is one where everybody's protected on this thing. You're in the Demon, you're protected. It has this raise up feature, which I guess would give you like maybe an advantage of the high ground? Is that a thing? I don't know if that's really a thing. I watch Star Wars, and Star Wars tells me that's a thing. I don't think it is. But a crazy missile launchers that could raise up, machine guns, a spotlight, and what's really cool is the despoiler could perch atop one. So really love the fact that it worked together. I'd love to see a classified, HasLab. That to me would be a great HasLab. The Demon. I'd be all in on that one. Next, we have the Warthog, and this is one of my favorite vehicles of all time. As a ground, this is a amphibious vehicle. It's a boat, but it's got tank treads, so it can go on the land or in the sea. But what's so good about this is that it's also a troop carrier and heavily armored. So you open up flaps and you can fit several figures inside. This was also a great toy, and then it floats, and it's just this boxy little funny looking thing with a really cool little warthog smile on it, and those 2-stage missiles. I don't really how that works. So the missiles have stabilizing rings on them that detach for some reason. You've got machine guns, and you've got little stations with hatches for 3 people. So there's a lot. It's a troop carrier. A lot of guys can fit in this. And it actually, it's like, to me, it's like, for me, this is the iconic, Sergeant Slaughter tank. The Triple T makes 0 sense. This one makes sense. It's heavily armored. It's much cooler. And for me, this is his ride. Okay, and the last 2 we have, and this is when we get into just iconic, best things ever produced for G.I. Joe, Cobra Bug. Finally, we have a submarine in Cobra, which was something that was just lacking. And it is the weirdest looking thing ever. It just does not, like, it's so weird sci-fi looking. It doesn't really fit in G.I. Joe necessarily, but if you go with it, man, was this thing fun. What made it so fun was, one, it was like, you had a troop carrier, like decompression tank in the back, so you could lift up the back flap and you could fit a lot of guys inside of there. So it was a good little troop carrier. But it was also just absolutely loaded. The front cockpit came out and became a little like recon vehicle that could float through the water independently. And it also had, machine gun turrets. And massive torpedoes, rockets, but for me, the number one, the coolest thing about this thing was that it came with 2 little jet skis that had missiles on them that detached. So you're just deploying these 2 guys, because I think any little vehicles like that were always the most fun to destroy, as you could have them flying through, and then the whale comes through and just smashes over them, or you shoot them down, or they smash into a rock or something. Little vehicles are always fun to destroy. So you just got a lot. There was a lot there for your buck, and one of the most fun toys in the G.I. Joe line. But the number 1 vehicle of this year has to be the Rolling Thunder, and this thing was immense. And if you had this, you had a good Christmas. You were loving life. This thing is so packed with weapons. It's so big. It just is this massive troop carrier. But at the core, which is crazy, is there's 2 what can only be described as nuclear missiles in the middle of this thing. Right? That is a nuclear payload right there. Missiles that big are there to destroy countries. That thing is massive. What was very cool too is missiles had a little deployment, which they had missiles inside of missiles, or bombs inside of missiles. So a little glass plane could come off and the missiles would drop off. But this thing is just full. It had a nose gun, big cockpit, and then it had places for gunners, all 4 stations with gunners. And then one of my favorite features was at a little rollout ramp and this little mini vehicles. It had 6 wheels and a pretty intense looking machine gun at the front that could go through and just destroy Cobra. Just came with so much stuff, loaded with weapons, really fun. But what I really loved about the Rolling Thunder, my favorite thing to the Rolling Thunder was I would pretend that they had to transport the nuclear missiles somewhere for some reason, and the dreadnoughts would come in and they would assault the Rolling Thunder Machine on motorcycles, ride in, and G.I. Joe would be fighting them off, and it was Road Warrior, but with Rolling Thunder versus dreadnoughts. That to me was ideal. And that makes this the greatest vehicle of 1988. Really one of the greatest vehicles they ever came out with. So, even though 1988 is maybe, where the peak is sort of leveling out and just slightly dipping, there's still stuff in this year that is amongst the best things that they ever made, I think. So that's my take. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below what I got right, what I got wrong, what your favorite thing of the year is, and let me know what year you would like me to do next. You can check out my review of the 1986 vehicles right here.